Welcome to my differentiation case study presented by Lisa Waters. My case study took place in Grange Post Primary, County Sligo. The aim of the study is to gain a deeper understanding of special education needs and my role as a teacher in catering for students' education. To design and incorporate differentiation into a project scheme and assess the effectiveness of differentiation through analysing a student's work. To gain a holistic understanding of a student's education progress. As a teacher, it is important to understand and appreciate the difference in each child. A teacher must adapt a range of different tools and approaches to cater for the challenges presented with special education needs. For my case study, I have chosen to work with a first-year student called Mary. The group will be completing a textile scheme over an 8-week period whereby students will create an abstract batik design inspired by their local built environment. Mary's profile: ADHD. The behaviour of a student with ADHD is characterised by poor sustained attention, impaired impulse control, and inability to delay gratification and excessive task-irrelevant activity. Dyscalculia primarily affects the learning process in relation to mathematics, where students exhibit a complete inability to manage mathematical concepts and numbers. It presents as an enduring condition that affects the ability to acquire mathematical skills despite appropriate teaching. Mary also has dyslexia. Dyslexia affects the learning process in relation to reading, writing, and speaking, such difficulties being disproportionate to students' other academic abilities. Recommended strategies for Mary: differentiated approach to class work and homework, use of assistive technology, use of simplified and short instructions, oral instructions supplemented by visual, giving a copy of notes from the board, summarising key points of lesson, use of diagram sketches, mind maps, repetition and reinforcement of key aspects, use checklist sheets, awareness of possible emotional impact of learning difficulties. Mary also had access to 2 SNAs and resource hours for her literacy and numeracy. Student strength: very capable to complete tasks after demonstrations, and her work is well presented. Mary had good work ethic, willing to make an effort and tries her best. Her weaknesses include low self-esteem, lacking confidence, and very weak in her reading and writing skills. From the survey, I found that Mary does not enjoy working on her own and works better in a group. She learns better from demonstration. Mary enjoys socialising with friends and watches Vampire Diaries and hopes to become a cook when she finishes school. Mary's literacy and numeracy skills are significantly below expectation for her age and level of schooling. She has experienced considerable difficulty with working memory and phonological awareness. Mary does not feel confident in her ability to complete work and can become frustrated if expected to complete work in line with age-appropriate expectations. Further results are listed in my rationale. I felt classroom organisation was extremely important. I seated Mary at the front near me so I could check on her progress. She was also seated near visuals, near a student with focus and understanding of the lesson, and group-limited distractions. Throughout the project, the room had to be constantly rearranged except for 2 tables, one in which she sat on. This rearranging was to accommodate group work and different workstations, such as waxing, sewing, dyeing, and drying. This allowed movement, especially the activities outside the classroom. This scheme had a lot of movement within the class, which helped with Mary's poor attention skills. Extract from Lesson 1. I used a PowerPoint to introduce a project by using photographs from the local park, which was located opposite the school. This would be the park we would visit later in the project. They were also introduced to new art such as batik. I used a short video to explain the process, but felt this went over their head, as it was quite a confusing process to explain to anyone who had never encountered it before. I then showed an example of batik, and this helped them understand a little better by touching and feeling the actual batik. This also a good way to really excite them about the project. I printed out images from the PowerPoint and added to the filter to help the students to draw the images. You could easily see shapes, forms, and textures within the filter images. We had a class discussion about the shapes, forms, and textures they found. and made them understand the subject matter further. I completed a demonstration at the bottom of the room on the demo table, allowing all students to gather around and see each step. I also got one student to demo again. I got Mary to demo to see if she understood the step-by-step process. This repeat demo allowed the other students to see it again. With it being such a small group, I was able to help Mary on a one-to-one basis as I noticed she was struggling with the gridding part of the process. I feel maybe a visual step-by-step aid may have been a good in this situation. I learned from my co-op teacher, who was also Mary's CSP teacher, that Mary works better in small groups. In her CSP class is quite a large group and Mary becomes closed off and doesn't communicate. Lesson 1. Extract from teacher's self-appraisal. I started with a discussion on a batik and I passed around my own batik for the students to touch and feel. This helped them understand the new art form. The students spent 25 to 30 minutes drawing. I demonstrated the gridding system, which helped their understanding. I explained the grid system would help them take better photographs later on in the project. Only a minority have completed the task. I would allow extra 10 minutes next class to finish these. It was evident that there was different levels of achievement and will need to have extra tasks prepared for the high achievers. Extract from my rationale. The special education needs system will be based on aiding the holistic development of a student, focusing on the natural talents and abilities to overcome weaknesses. Early intervention is key as a key priority to success of a program. Resource activities, content and methodologies will be chosen bearing in mind the need to ensure that special education needs is a positive experience whereby students enjoy participating in a program. This is from Grange Post-Primary Special Education Needs Policy 2015. Here are photographs that were taken by Mary. Unfortunately, the next lesson, the weather could not permit us going to the park. This allowed us to use the camera and become more aware of the functions. To help increase Mary's self-esteem, I gave genuine praise when possible. Thankfully, the next double class, we ventured outside to the park. The students got a demo on using the camera again, and everyone used the camera before leaving the classroom. I paired up the groups and assigned them to draw in different areas. I only had one camera, but as it was a small group, while one group was drawing, one group took photographs. I was also limited to the photographs taken. Mary was very capable to completing this task as she felt the buddy system worked in her favour, as there was able to peer learn. Here are the photographs that Mary had taken. I was impressed with her ability to find interesting shapes, forms and textures. Please note these photographs have not been altered. Lesson 3, Teacher's Appraisal. I instructed the class on health and safety precautions before leaving the classroom. I had also demonstrated how to use a camera and viewfinder. I also got all students to show me how to use both items. This saved time as we could enter the park and start straight away. I made sure Mary's SNA and art teacher were at either end of the park to keep an eye on all students. After the park, we entered back into the classroom and reviewed the photographs on the projector. Rationale extract. After my first inspection, as recommended, I decided to set learning expectations and objectives at the beginning of each lesson. I feel this helped as me as a teacher and for the students to fully understand what was expected from them when in the class. I also asked questions and gave adequate wait time to answer these, as I feel it's an important way to assess their learning and understanding. Moving on to lesson 6, as you can see from here, my lesson plan, we began editing photographs using an online website. I found an online version of Photoshop as the computers in the classroom were very old and unable to download any software. This online version worked effectively as I had a step-by-step handout for each student to aid with their editing. This helped Mary's visual literacy as I had highlighted the keywords. I first demonstrated it on the projector. I then called out the instructions and got each student to complete one filtered image step by step. Once Mary completed one image, she was able to continue with her own filters. You can see above her edited photographs. Teacher's appraisal. The students worked very well on the computers, even though there was one student, Jack, that was very unfamiliar with using the step-by-step guide worked effectively, with aiding the student through the process. I was extremely pleased with all the students' outcomes. Overall, I feel they will use to make a successful batik design. I felt the class worked as a single class as it would be too short for a double. Rationale extract. Differentiation requires the teacher to vary their approaches in order to accommodate various learning styles, abilities and levels of interest. The curriculum advocates the use of a broad range of activity learning methodologies such as the use of the environment, talk and discussion, collaborative work and use of ICT. Primary Professional Development Service 2016. In Lesson 7, I felt it was very important for the class for their design stage and their overall experimentation of wax resist technique. Unfortunately, no one moved on to their design on this lesson, but felt experimenting with wax and dipping and dyeing helped them understand the limitations of batik. With experimentation, as you can see here, Mary experimented with wax after me demonstrating using the tangent tool and brushes. When Mary understood the wax resist, she understood further how she can complete a batik design. I made a word chart and a visual aid with their experimentation. I also completed a sequence colour chart for my own batik to help Mary understand what colour came first and the light to dark rule. Teacher's appraisal. I felt the students really enjoyed today's class as there was a lot of experimentation with waxing and dyeing fabric. They learned about batik rather through doing than from me trying to explain through examples and video. All students used the wax pot tangent tool to complete one experiment dip. No student completed their final design, but I felt their experimental stage was very important for their understanding of their limitations with batik. Rationale. Extract. Any new words mentioned during the demonstration or instruction were placed on the new word chart. Mary's prep sheet. As you can see here, a big part of my strategy was handouts and visual handouts. As you can see here, Mary's prep sheet was annotated using a writing resource sheet. She completed some stitching using a visual step-by-step aid, and to reinforce new terminology, we had a crossword. This is Mary's design for her batik. Mary was aided by the differentiation strategies built within the scheme and the completed project. The student was focused on tasks aided by worksheets. The reinforcements of keywords at the end of each class enabled her to learn and understand batik. I feel there was a great sense of achievement within the class as they were the first group to ever complete a batik project within grade post-primary. Under my rubric section, Drawing, Photoshop and Observation, Mary was weak at the observational stage of drawing, but was stronger in the photography and Photoshop element. Under Knowledge and Understanding, Mary understood the step-by-step involved in making batik. She was able to clearly express her ideas orally when asked. This was a big improvement from the beginning of the class when she was very much a yes or no answer. Technical skills. More careful consideration was needed when applying wax, but was very good effort for first batik. Mary's attitude. She was confident in later classes involved through the making part of the project. Mary was very shy with the early stages. For the future, I may need to add more strategies if I were to work with a bigger group, as I had the advantage of one-on-one time with all students. Overall, I learned to differentiate in your classroom. You must know your students' interest, preferred learning styles, current level of knowledge and skills. You need to organise your room with flexible grouping and clear class objectives to promote an engaging learning environment. Overall, I really enjoyed this programme and felt I learned a lot through this assignment. Thank you for listening.